Welcome to Hollywood World. In this video, we're going to dive deep into a hidden chapter of Tinseltown's golden era. Before his death at age 70, Hollywood rebel and rugged icon Sterling Hayden reportedly left behind a private journal revealing shocking truths, including the names of 15 gay actors he secretly dated in old Hollywood. These weren't just flings. Some were hidden loves, others painful breakups, all set against the backdrop of an industry that forced stars to live double lives. 1. Rock Hudson. Sterling wrote about Rock Hudson with a deep sense of melancholy. They met in 1954 on a Paramount backlot. Rock, the handsome poster boy of heteronormative masculinity, was struggling with the burden of living a lie. Sterling described him as tall, tormented, and gentle. Their relationship lasted just under a year, full of stolen weekends in Palm Springs and poetic letters that were always burned. Sterling claimed that Rock's fear of being outed by the studios ultimately drove a wedge between them. 2. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift and Sterling met during an anti-McCarthy fundraiser. Both known for their political outspokenness, their connection went beyond physical attraction. They bonded over jazz records and late-night walks through Laurel Canyon. Sterling called Monty, "the only man who could see past my anger." But Clift's inner demons and addiction struggles haunted the relationship. They drifted apart after Monty's infamous car crash in 1956. 3. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter was young, golden, and just starting to rise. Sterling, 14 years his senior, found Tab's innocence refreshing. Their romance blossomed during sailing trips to Catalina Island. Sterling described it as a boy's summer dream, lit with laughter and moonlight. But Warner Brothers had strict image contracts, and Tab was warned to avoid Sterling, whom the studio viewed as a wild card. Still, they remained close friends for decades, often exchanging coded letters. 4. Anthony Perkins. Sterling and Anthony Perkins met through mutual literary friends in Greenwich Village in the early 60s. They were both voracious readers and would discuss Henry Miller, Rimbaud, and anarchist theory deep into the night. Sterling called Perkins delicate, brilliant, and scared of his own shadow. Their relationship remained purely emotional for months, evolving into a physical one only during Perkins' brief break from Broadway. Sterling wrote that he always felt Anthony loved ideas more than people, but he cherished the connection anyway. 5. Sal Mineo. Sterling's connection with Sal Mineo was intense and brief. They met in 1962 at a small dinner party hosted by Natalie Wood. Sal was 22, electric with energy, and unafraid to flirt with danger. Sterling described Sal as a spark in a dark tunnel, burning fast, furious, and doomed to vanish. Their affair lasted only a few weeks, but it left a lasting impression. Sterling was devastated when Sal was murdered in 1976. 6. Farley Granger. Farley and Sterling shared more than just physical chemistry, they both harbored disdain for Hollywood's hypocrisy. They'd escape to Mexico for weeks at a time, away from gossip columnists and studio spies. Farley later came out publicly, but according to Sterling, he was never in, not really. They remained lifelong confidants, even after their romantic relationship faded. 7. Ramon Navarro. Ramon Navarro was a legend of the silent film era, and by the time he met Sterling in the 1950s, he was mostly retired. Their age difference, nearly 30 years, made Sterling skeptical at first. But he quickly fell for Ramon's charm and stories of old Hollywood's hidden gay circles. They shared long weekends in Santa Barbara, where Ramon introduced him to a private gay artist colony. Sterling called their connection a beautiful chapter that bridged generations. 8. John Dahl. John Dahl was mysterious, elusive, and known for his role in Rope and Gun Crazy. Sterling claimed they met during a secret writers' retreat in Northern California. Sterling wrote, "John lived like he acted, reckless, poetic, always 1 foot out the door." They shared a passionate, erratic relationship for 2 years, often breaking up over politics or Sterling's drinking, only to reunite days later. 9. Van Johnson. Van Johnson, the freckled all-American boy, was one of MGM's most bankable stars, and one of its most protected. Sterling recalled meeting Van at a Hollywood Hills party in 1947. Beneath the polished exterior, he found a man desperate to be touched without judgment. Their relationship was brief, just a month, but unforgettable. Sterling admired how Van kept his gentle spirit in an industry that demanded constant performance. 10. Richard Chamberlain. Before Drive, Kildare made Richard Chamberlain a household name. He was a struggling actor Sterling met at a workshop. Sterling saw in him a quiet ambition, and they developed a mentor-mentee relationship that grew into intimacy. Chamberlain would later deny his sexuality for decades, but Sterling wrote, "We shared something quiet, sacred, like a prayer neither of us knew how to say aloud." 11. George Nader. George Nader was groomed to be the next Rock Hudson, but his career faltered due to persistent rumors about his sexuality. Sterling and George met while lobbying for actor union rights. They fell for each other quickly. Sterling wrote that George was brave enough to love openly, even if no one could see it. When Confidential magazine threatened to expose Rock Hudson, George took the fall by being outed instead. Sterling called him the bravest man in a city full of masks. 12. William Haynes. William Haynes had already walked away from Hollywood by the time Sterling came of age, but they met in the late 40s through mutual friends. By then, Haynes was a successful interior designer and lived openly with his partner, Jimmy Shields. Sterling described one magical night in their Brentwood home, full of jazz, drinks, and one unforgettable kiss. He wrote, "Bill showed me what life could look like beyond fear." Though they were never lovers, Haynes deeply influenced Sterling's path. 13. Clifton Webb. Clifton Webb was a refined man, famous for playing uptight characters. But behind closed doors, he was witty, flirtatious, and deeply affectionate. Sterling met him at a poetry reading in 1951. Webb had a keen interest in Rimbaud and knew more about Greek love poetry than most professors. They had a slow-burning affair marked by handwritten letters and private jazz concerts. Sterling called it a romance of the mind first, the body second. 14. Dirk Bogarde. Though primarily a UK star, Dirk Bogarde spent time in Hollywood during the late 50s. That's where he met Sterling, reportedly during a secret screening of Victim, a British film that subtly addressed homosexuality. Sterling was fascinated by Dirk's elegance and restraint. They shared a brief but passionate time in Europe, away from the prying eyes of American media. Sterling later wrote, "He carried his pain like a badge of honor, and in his arms, I felt understood." 15. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power was the last person Sterling expected to connect with. Known as a swashbuckling romantic lead, Tyrone was also deeply troubled about his sexuality. They met in 1946 during a USO tour and developed a connection through shared war trauma. Sterling said their relationship was like a dream under siege, sweet, short, and shattered by reality. Tyrone would go on to marry multiple times, but Sterling believed a part of him always lived in the shadows. Sterling Hayden was never a man who followed rules. He lived by his own compass, politically, personally, romantically. His hidden romances with these 15 actors paint a fuller picture of both himself and of Hollywood's most painful hypocrisy, forcing stars to hide the truth about who they loved. Sterling's final words in the journal read, "If the world had been kinder, maybe we could have lived braver." If this video moved you, taught you something new, or just made you reflect, hit that like button, subscribe to Hollywood World, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think lived the most tragic double life in old Hollywood? We'll be back soon with more untold stories from behind the silver screen. Thanks for watching.